With that, I'd like to call on our next panelists to come and take the stage. And as they make their way up here, I'd like to thank our panel sponsor for this upcoming Internet of Things Hyperconnectivity panel, SaskTel, for their sponsorship of the panel. Ron Stiles, the president and CEO of the company, sends his regrets and his good wishes. He can't be here. I guess it's a good news, bad news thing with SaskTel. On the one hand, there's only one shareholder that he's beholden to. On the other hand, there's only one shareholder that he's beholden to, and that's the government. So, but again, thank you to SaskTel for their sponsorship of this panel. So I see the panelists are settled in, and I'd like to introduce our moderator, Namir Anani, President and CEO of the Information and Communications Technology Council. He is the chief strategist and the driving force in bringing ICTC's expertise and services to industry, to education, and government to enable Canada's advancement in the innovation, productivity in the global economy. We appreciate Namir's support in pulling together our distinguished panel, and I'd like to turn things over to Namir right now.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mark, for yet another engaging and informative conference. It's certainly my pleasure to be here today and to dialogue with such a distinguished panel on a subject of interest to all of us, and that is, how do we take advantage of this hyper-connected global digital economy? In the last number of years, we've seen unprecedented economic growth driven by young economies emerging, trade expanding, but primarily due to innovations in technology. In the next number of years, SMAC technologies, as they call them, social, mobile, analytics, and cloud, under the larger umbrella of the Internet of Things, will have a transformative impact on the way we do manufacturing, the way governments will be providing services to Canadians, the way we care for our health, for retail, and many other factors. So today is a rare opportunity for us to discuss with key leaders from both industry and government, to get a feel of how the environment is shaping, and to look at what are the right enablers for us to make that happen as a country going forward. To talk about it from the networks, to talk about it from the business model, to talk about it from the talent, the leadership that is needed, access to capital financing, and all the elements associated with that. So how will this play out? I will shortly and briefly introduce the panelists. There's more information on them from the interest of time, more information available on the web. I will then ask each one of them to present their vision as it relates to the business for the Internet of Things. And then I will ask them questions. I will also ask them to ask questions of each other, and we'll open it to the floor after that and do some concluding remarks. So let me start from my far left is Liseanne Forand, who is the President of Shared Services, Government of Canada, and then Nicola Marziliano, who is the head of Nokia Europe, and then Robert Hardt, who is the President and CEO of Siemens Canada. So with that, maybe, Nicola, I'll ask you to start with your presentation, because I think you have slides.
Yep. Can I see the slides somewhere? Or? In front? Are they coming from the front?
So it should be, if it's not, maybe in that case, we can
Either are no slide?
No.
I can eventually start. So the idea was to put 2 or 3 slides, and honestly, as initially from Italy, it was very difficult to think the way to shrink down, as I was asked to make a very short presentation, and I was just wonder how many slides, how many thought to put together. And after these 2 days of intensive conversation, even more slides came to my mind to be presented. So I really had to challenge myself and to reduce into a few key points to deliver to the audience over here. So the point number 1, you may have heard my colleagues and the North America head, Ricky Corker, talking about Nokia vision of human technology. Internet of Things unlock a lot of opportunity. We believe it's not just an opportunity to make things connected. Well, we used to be famous as a Nokia connecting people. Maybe we're going to be connecting things. But it's not for the nature of connecting things. At the end of the day, we want to improve the quality of life. So that's why we talk about human technology. So technology has to be at service of human being. And we believe that is going to be an incredible game changer in the next years. We talk about 2025. Somebody talk about 2020 more, you know, in the close, I wouldn't say short sighting, but 2025, we believe there are going to be 50 billion connected things. It's going to be a Pandora type of planet? I don't know. Everybody connected, so stones, leaves, everything connected. I don't know. But clearly we believe that is going to be the way the human action evolve in human sensor and eventually in human thinking, interconnecting things together in the year to come. Now, what is going to be the challenge for that? Let me think about, as a network expert, there are going to be a lot of challenge from an operator perspective. Firstly, we used to build network, and eventually people try to get, and probably many of you, as I definitely do remember, we were just roaming with our phones and with our, not yet smartphone, but phones, you know, trying to find a signal. And because we were looking for networks. So we build networks and eventually people may use it. Now it's a paradigm shift because there will be everything around the people. And it's not just about networks, it's about services, it's about information, it's about exchanging data. So everything will go around the people and not the contrary. The second is that we build monolithic networks, like very vertical silos with all the infrastructure. And that is the reason why eventually, if you get a coverage, you may get a service, and otherwise you don't. Here, the network is going to be flexible. It's what I call generation me and generation now. Generation me because all the services will be around me, and generation now because I want the service when I need it. I don't need the service when I don't need it. It's pretty trivial, but it's not. Actually, operator provide 24/7 service availability, which is eventually is good, is by the law, is by the regulation, is by given requirement, but it's not necessarily fitting my need. And what are my need is that I want to have a service when I need the service. So from a network perspective, the implication is that we may have a flexible network. A lot of people talk about SDN, software-defined networks. What does it mean? You may have a layered architectural technology which is going to be allocated and giving resources to a given user application on a given time and moment, and not always fixed and allocated. And many other implications. Concluding, hopefully staying in my in my time slot. We think about Internet of something. Can be Internet of Things. Can be Internet of me. Can be an Internet of something that is around usability of. We talk about wearable, which can be attached to health. Can be attached to fitness. We can think about security, alarms at home, improving the quality at home, meaning that you can switch on. It's not just about domotic, but it's really saving time and saving energies in my house. The third can be on the, all around me when I'm moving around. There is a lot of discussion, and especially down in Europe, about municipality giving information when you're driving and when you are walking down, especially in the historical city, where you have a lot of monuments, where you have a lot of things to see and touch and eventually visit. and then walking around and getting real-time data information. Either is augmented reality, or is about SMS, is about messaging, is about link, everything that can be serving you. And that data also are sent back to big data provider, which are also aggregated data for additional services. So that is another phenomenon about me. And last but not least, which eventually I just drop as a last message, is about what we can think about the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, we do expect things to help us, or the Internet of Things to help us on producing in a different way and eventually improving the way we think about production. I heard colleagues, and even Nokia colleagues in this day, talk about, is it Internet of Things taking out my job? Is it this automation or extreme automation going to be eventually swapping myself, being me redundant and not necessary anymore? I think that the debate is very much open. Nobody can really say, that is black or white, but definitely we believe that is more an opportunity rather than a threat, and it's an opportunity because we do expect more job to be created, or alternative job to be created, or new industry to be created. That's all.
Thank you, Nicola. Before we get into the productivity and manufacturing, sort of maybe if I can ask Liseanne to expand on your view of the Internet of Things from a government perspective.
Thanks, Namir. So I'm with Shared Services Canada. We're not a regulator. We're not in the policy business. We are in the nuts and bolts and sometimes grubby delivery end of IT in government. So Shared Services Canada is a new department of government that was created in August of 2011 with a mandate to consolidate all of the government's email systems, to consolidate all its data centers, and to create a single integrated network for the Government of Canada. And then in 2013, we were also given the mandate to consolidate the procurement of end-user device software and hardware. So we are very much in the delivery end. The scope of our business is we serve 42 departments of government, 43 if we include ourselves, which represent 95% of the IT spend for the Government of Canada. We inherited 1,200 employees from the Department of Public Works and Government Services in August of 2011, and in November of 2011, 5,000 additional employees were transferred to us from 42 different places in government. So it's been an interesting exercise in diversity and complexity, bringing all of this together. But the value proposition, obviously, for what we're doing is very sound, as probably most of you know from your own businesses and corporations, but especially so because of the diversity that existed before that. We have a plan to decommission somewhere close to 700 places where servers are kept. I won't glorify them by the name of data centers, but that's essentially what they're treated as. So we're going to consolidate down from that to about 4 or 5. We are going to integrate 50+ wide area networks into a single area network, clean up all of the local area network spaghetti stuff that's around. And we're also going to put the whole Government of Canada on a single email system. So that'll be about 377,000 people on the single system. There's a big focus, of course, on savings with this agenda for government, and it will deliver those savings. We're anticipating something in the range of 20 to 25% annual savings by the time we're done in 2020. But it's got other benefits as well, as I'm sure you can appreciate. We're anticipating an increase in storage by at least 7 times when we have completed our purpose-built, modern, fully redundant, reliable, and secure data centers. And we're also anticipating an increase of at least 4 times in broadband and bandwidth, rather, for departments, which is really needed. So that means, coming to the topic of our panel, what we are building for government, for the Government of Canada, for all of its departments, is a much, much greater capacity for connectivity. We are increasing the capacity for data, the computing power, et cetera, for government as part of this, seemingly technical infrastructure agenda. So, but in addition to the savings and to the better service and better capacity, we're also seriously enhancing the cybersecurity coverage across government. For the first time since we were created, somebody has visibility across the infrastructure of the Government of Canada, which was not the case before. There were policy bodies who could tell us what to do, and then individually in silos in departments, there were people who were responsible for making sure that what needed to do got done. But now we as Shared Services Canada at the infrastructure layer have visibility on all the equipment, on all the personnel, on all the processes, and on all of the thousands and thousands and thousands of potential incidents that happen constantly. So that's, and as well, we have a much deeper bench of technology expertise than any single department could have done. So that's the objective of our agenda, decrease the costs, improve the service, and enhance the savings. But I touch on one other thing beyond that in terms of what does all of this modern, connected capacity get us, and that is it helps us create the conditions that are absolutely essential for modern government, for service delivery in the 21st century. The Clerk of the Privy Council, who's the head of the public service, is sponsoring a huge agenda within the public service called Blueprint 2020, which is a vision of what the federal government's public service needs to look like in order to continue to be relevant and in order to be sustainable over the long haul. So that includes notions of openness, of networking, of being agile, of being technology enabled, et cetera. And we need that in the public service in order to be able to attract and retain the excellent capacity that we need in order to deliver excellent service and programs to Canadians from coast to coast to coast, and to get to the question of rural bandwidth and all that kind of stuff, to be able to have a diverse and representative workforce. And that means being able to have a workforce that's located in Iqaluit as well as in downtown Toronto. So the Shared Services Canada agenda is actually quite critical to that whole Blueprint initiative. On the one hand, we have some specific initiatives. We are delivering a very minor Facebook-y kind of directory for government, which we'll be able to do, which we already have in place, where people can put their pictures up and their competencies and that sort of thing. We are rolling out Wi-Fi across government and providing the tools for mobile workforce. We're bringing video conferencing to the desktop, and we are going to create shared intranets for people to connect amongst themselves. But beyond that, and I'll stop at this, more fundamentally, our agenda is absolutely essential for a modern public service to function. We need the capacity for big data. We need to be able to be connected. We need to clear away. We had more firewalls between departments than we had firewalls with the outside world. And in that context, we need to open all of that up, but we also need to be secure. So we're quite proud of the agenda that we have and at the work that we're doing that is going to deliver better service delivery by the Government of Canada, that is going to enhance security for your data and my data and all the work that we do, and that's going to create the conditions for a truly modern public service. So I look forward to any questions that might come, making the linkage between this and the broader agenda.
Thank you, Liseanne. Robert, if you may give us your vision on the Internet of Things as it relates to Siemens.
Thanks, Amir, first of all, having me on the panel here. And I think it's very timely to have this discussion about manufacturing and also information technology, because it's growing more and more together. So when I started as an engineer with my company back in the old times in Germany 27 years plus ago, so then you had the automation world and you had the IT world, and it didn't really connect to each other. So today you see it's all connecting and even more connecting. And we call that, of course, Internet of Things or Internet of Everything and digitalization. So, and I must say, all of us, we live in very, very exciting times. So, and when I look back, I would say it's really an industrial revolution where we are right now and where we are going through. And all of us, we are part of that. So we shape this revolution with our ideas and also with our solutions, with our organizations, and it's really worthwhile to do, because that will open up new opportunities to grow the economy and also provide new opportunities for people really to get really well-paid and sustainable jobs. So when you mentioned this, this phrase Industry 4.0 or 4.0, so I think, I'm not sure how many of you know this, this phrase. Maybe you raise a hand, maybe make a quick poll. So nobody? Oh, 1, 2, 3, good. So it's actually a term coming from Europe, and most, I think in most cases you see it in Germany, but it's a European initiative because in Europe they saw already the challenge in manufacturing, and you see it worldwide, and especially here in Canada and North America. We had 20 years ago, we had the offshoring going into other countries with low wages and also different maybe standards of manufacturing and how to manufacture. Now we see it's coming back. So, but it's not coming back because the wages in Europe or US or Canada are lower. So it's coming back because wages somewhere are going higher, but more so it's coming back because you see more innovation on the manufacturing side. So, and for example, when you look on the US, so what is crucial here is that in the manufacturing area, the IT capabilities of the US, so is merging into the manufacturing space and drives more productivity, but also drives more flexibility and customization into the value chain. So it's not just to say, okay, we have a better exchange rate or lower wages or lower standards on the production side. It's really about innovation and combined technologies for new technology trends and really drive productivity and also drive innovation in products and in processes. And that is the vision of Industry 4.0, and we call that the fourth industrial revolution. You know, the first was with James Watt with his steam machine, then we had a second. So there was, we normally say it's from Ford with his production line, but it was more or less in a slaughterhouse in Chicago, so it's better to say about it, it's a car than a slaughterhouse. So, and then the third was in the 60s and 70s with the automation. And now the fourth is really the merger of the technologies of automation and IT. So, and very often when we talk about Industry 4.0 or advanced manufacturing, people say, it's 3D printing. But 3D printing is only one element of advanced manufacturing. So 3D printing is a disruptive technology, so it opens up really new areas of production. So maybe in future, or already you see frame producers for glass frame or for frames for glasses, that you can have your own special frame adapted to your face, and then you can 3D print it, and you will see more and more of those technologies. Or we as Siemens, so we print, for example, blades for gas turbines, so, and we use that for repair and for spare parts, and that reduces, for example, the repair time by 90% and the cost by 30%. So that is something you see from advanced manufacturing with the 3D printing technologies. But as I said, it's only one element. So the other elements are coming from the internet and from the IT world. For example, big data, collecting all the data. What do we do with the data? Then we have data analytics. We have simulation tools so that we simulate before we build something. So we have autonomous robots coming up. Yeah, you see from robotic companies now creating robots with 2 arms. Of course, then they have to be coordinated. And then the next step is that they work autonomously and that they will also work together with human beings in the same cell. Today, it's not possible. So you have other topics like horizontal and vertical system integration. So there you see, for example, what the IT companies do, like SAP or other ERM or ERP companies, and then the vertical integration with classical automation company like Siemens. You have topics like the cloud, so more and more industrial and also production solutions go in the cloud. Yeah? So, and then are available globally. Then we have additive manufacturing, that is 3D, augmented reality. So what we do, for example, you know, the Google glasses, so that we send out our service technicians to a customer, so via the internet, via the cloud, and also via GPS. So they connect with a service center and they get directly instructions how to repair something, or how to install something, because the operator can see exactly also what the service technician can see. So, and they also can do analysis what to do best. So, and then of course we have the cybersecurity topic. So, because when everything is floating around, so we have operations, you need to be secure. So, and that are all elements of Industry 4.0. So, what does it mean for companies like Siemens, or manufacturers, or even SMEs, small companies? So, we think that the entire value chain will be digitalized, so that nothing will stay in isolation. So that means it comes from the customer and goes into the production side, and it also integrates later on customer service. Companies who will not embrace that and will change their way of doing business, they will be out of business most likely in 5, 10, or latest in 15 years. So companies who embrace that, so they will be more innovative, they come up with more productive production processes, but also they have the opportunity to come closer to their customers and react to their needs with the adapted products, and can directly bring that also into their production process, adapt their production process. It's all about flexibility. And you can imagine what that means for a customer. Today we have customers, so of course they already use smartphones and they configure their products. For a simple thing is we configure our cars. So you have millions of opportunities to configure your car. You do it on the internet, you send it to the manufacturer, and then he builds, or they build the car. And I can remember the times when you had to wait for a car from whatever, BMW or Volkswagen, 6 months. Today you get it in 6 weeks latest, and it's shipped from the production site to Canada. So it's not a big deal. So, but behind that, there is a very flexible, digitalized production process and a value chain. And what does it mean then for employees? So for employees, it means of also change. But it also means that the work environment is more challenging, but also more, I would say, motivating, because you are exposed to very exciting technologies. Look on the young people. So they already living with the digitalization day in and day out. So, and that also will emerge in the day-to-day life. So we see it in the offices, we'll see it on the shop floor, we see it on the service arena. So in summary, I would say for us, Industry 4.0, that is the fourth industrial revolution, and that is a vision how the industrial landscape and advanced manufacturing will look in 5, and I think personally in 10 years. And maybe bring it to the point, who not will be digitalized in 5 or 10 years will die.
Thank you. Okay, I have a lot of questions on the manufacturing, but let me start with Nicola, maybe from the nuts and bolts, as Liseanne mentioned. You know, so we heard in the conference that there will be 50 billion devices connected by 2020. In fact, IDC said even more. Nokia even comes out with the same figures. How are we going to satisfy the thirst for this connectivity? Is it going to be, is it going to be, is it Wi-Fi? Is it unlicensed LTE? Is it cellular? Is it satellite? What's your view on that?
Well, okay. First of all, we're talking about. I appreciate there was an example from a presenter talking about the IP version 4, IP version 6, the difference between a soccer ball and the sun. So that is a difference between version 4 and 5 and 6. So unlocking that number of interconnection, it's amazing. And then, of course, exactly, how do you serve this amount of connectivity? We do see already, as we drive in the standardization in many continents, but also in different bodies, It's very fragmented, to be honest. So LTE-M is probably the most quickest and closer to everyone as we talk about technology for enabling the machine-to-machine type of language. But we do see many others, and I think that 2G, 3G, Wi-Fi, so everything is an enabler. So for us, LTE-M is the next standardization to be exploited. But definitely, it's not only LTE-M, and we need to start now, because it's already now. Many examples we just mentioned today is not the future, it's today. So the Internet of Things is going to be materialized through different steps, where ingredients are multiple. It's not just the 5G. Clearly, 5G is going to be the final unlocker. Intermediate step is LTE-M, but LTE in general, has eventually a question to the colleagues here is, how do you see the spectrum, the unlicensed availability of LTE spectrum is going to be also development for the producer. There was a comment a couple of days ago about IPR and intellectual properties. I mean, who is investing in technology is investing a lot of money, billion, to advance the industry and the society. Now, what does it mean when talking about investment? Investment is finding new way of utilizing the spectrum, having the new radio technology to have a beamform type of capability to have the famous millimeters coverage. I mean, when you want to guide a single sensor over there that has to be lasting for 10 years because the energy consumption, the battery, and the life, no maintenance, so it has to be really highly efficient, you need to have a radio coverage which is going to be really like a laser capacity to just take this side of the spectrum. So that's radio technology has to be developed. And so you need to put a lot of money over there. You need to invent new, also a better way of having this millimeter type of wave. And that is what we see right now.
Okay. Excellent, thanks, Nicola. So maybe, Liseanne, interestingly, I was talking to a retailer a couple of days ago, said, I took all my data from the servers and put it on the cloud, and everybody's talking about big data. He said, I don't know how to use that information, and I haven't been, and he used the term called DRIP, Data Rich Information Poor. You are consolidating 43 departments with I don't know how many amount of data on that. How are you turning that data into information? It's a large question, but...
That will be the challenge, I think, for the service delivery agents and for the policymakers of government, because our capacity to generate data now is expanding so quickly and so continuously. And if we create the capacity to store it as well, it's just going to be created and stored and nothing is going to come of it. So there's a number of strategies that government is looking at. I think is probably quite like others, like industry. On the one hand, Government of Canada supports an open data, an international open data initiative, whereby we have asked all departments, all branches of government, all parts of government to make any data that they have available through the cloud openly available, so that others can find ways to turn information, to create information from that data. We know that that's sometimes not, there's all sorts of areas that we're not busy in that other people can use this data. So there's a first triage that needs to be made between data that needs to be kept within government and data that can be made available to people, to business, to communities, to innovators, etc. So that's a huge initiative that's being driven by the Honourable Tony Clement, the President of the Treasury Board, and he's had quite a lot of success in that area, setting up hackathons and all this kind of stuff, and data summits for non-government people. So that's the public data. Then there's the data that we need to use within government that we, in the first instance, really do need to protect. And so we need to come up, certainly from our perspective, with the way that we can best protect that data from cyber attacks, from privacy intrusions, and yet still make it available to the broadest number of policymakers and service delivery personnel across government, so that we can get what would be our equivalent of business intelligence out of it, and so that we can simplify service delivery and make service delivery better for Canadians who have to interact with us. I'm sure you can all imagine how much easier it would be if your tax form arrived already filled out. Instead of having to do anything on it. You can check it afterwards, you can see whether there's other things you want to do, but essentially most of the information you give to government already has. It just can't get its hands on it and put it in the right places. And we can't share it, of course, for very good reasons. So there's a whole big amount of thinking that's going on in terms of how can we best use the information we already have to make service delivery more effective, to make it simpler for citizens across the spectrum, and to enable us to do the policy work that we need to do. So our agenda is part of that. We're in the business of trying to make sure that the infrastructure that we create, on which all of the government applications will run, will be constructed in such a way that we will be creating capacity amongst ourselves and not putting up walls.
Excellent, thanks, Liseanne. Robert, maybe to go back on the manufacturing side. So in fact, I started my career in the pharmaceutical chemical industry in the manufacturing. At the time, you automated the system to control the product. Industry 4.0, the more I understand it, it's the product reprogramming the machine and every stage of the manufacturing through the sensory devices, through connected devices, to ensure that the yield, output, quality is all maintained as a result. But I want to understand a little bit more on, because you mentioned about the SMEs and that. So Canada's industry, 70% of it, according to our research, is less than 10 employees. 10% of Canada's output is linked to manufacturing. In the 90s and 2000s, many countries, including Europe, moved manufacturing to China and India for labor, for cost, for labor availability, and so forth. Do you think Industry 4.0 is going to change that for the very small and micro companies, where they be able to source, manufacture in Canada, but source certain things across different continents? Is that a possibility? Is that what it could be? Is it going to democratize manufacturing through the connected environment?
Yeah. I think it's difficult to define the democratizing manufacturing. But nevertheless, I think there's a great opportunity, but also a threat for SMEs. Because when you see an SME, they can be a niche producer, so they can have a unique product, and with that they can globalize, and they have to globalize, especially Canadian companies. You have a market of 35 million people here, so in order to grow on a really scale which provides security and for the company, so you have to globalize. You have to go to other markets, and not just the US. So you have to go global. So so when you have such a product, so Industry 4.0, all the technologies around that, so will help you to do that. So also will help you to develop those products in a very efficient way. I give you an example later on. So for example, how it works together. If you are an SME who is a supplier of a multinational or a big, let's say, OEM, let's say car manufacturing like it is here in Canada, and you are not really digitizing yourself and follow also the technology implementation on your customer side, you're out of business. I'll give you an example now. So what we were asked from one big luxury car manufacturer in Europe, so don't give you the name, but Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg driving for them. So it's quite a big car manufacturing. So they asked us in 2011 to change their entire design software and also their automation software platform to Siemens products. So to our product lifecycle management suite. So that means from the product design to the product prototyping, testing, designing of the manufacturing lines, and then also automation of the manufacturing lines. That means their entire value chain in there, from design to the end delivery of the product on one platform. So why did they do that? They said, okay, first of all, we don't want to test our cars so in a physical way. So that means as with steel and really as a physical car. We want to test that in the virtual world. And you can imagine what benefits that brings for them. So they save a lot of cost, they speed up time, so, and also the quality goes up. So in our software tools and suites, they enable that. And they integrate the entire process down to the manufacturing line. So in what you mentioned before, they also can plan, with every step they do in the design of the new car, they can also already plan the manufacturing line and optimize that. So that means, so they will reduce, or are able now to reduce the development cycle of their cars significantly. So, and also to manage all the variances customers are asking for, and also they can offer new variances to the customer without additional costs. So that was a 5-year program. We had to train more than 6,000 employees of this company. And what the company is doing now, and they did it also in parallel, they went to their suppliers, the SMEs, and said, you have to integrate yourself into our new world, into our digitized supply chain now. So what chance do you have as an SME? Yeah? Say no? No, the only chance you have, either you say, okay, I stay with this big customer, so you have to invest into that. So, or if you want to come into that and get a new customer, you have to also to then change your way of doing business and invest in these technologies. So that means if you don't do that and if you don't digitize, you are out of business more and more. So, and therefore I said, okay, digitize or die, that will come more and more. So for both ends, SMEs who have their own product, a niche product, they can really go into the market and build their own supply chain with their own suppliers, or of SMEs who are already suppliers of bigger OEMs, so just to stay in business or to grow their business. So that's, from my point of view, a quite simple task, but it's a very complex thing to do.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely, thanks. Nicola, so we heard in the last couple of days, the notion of connected cars and high-end cars having their own social network. If it hits an ice patch, it communicates with another car in proximity, tells it the coordinates to the driver where the next thing is happening. The business, in fact, the insurance companies are coming on that data and offering better premiums on this. But let's talk money for the network operators. How are they going to monetize the data and the information? Is it going to be on volume, or is it going to be on intelligence of value? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, today the trend especially in the network operator space is they start with a machine-to-machine type of business, but of course machine-to-machine is a market where you charge, in principle, you charge by value. On the other hand, they're running business, so the human subscription compared to the things or the machinery subscription, it's very much based on volume transaction. So while the human being or the SIM or the subscription for us is typically, and you saw the previous presentation based on giga and jillion of trillion or whatever number of gigabyte, because that is the human being interaction. So we interact with a lot of information. Things eventually, well, depending on the type of things, but the number of sensor and connectivity we're going to create, maybe they are just run around bytes or kilobytes or megabytes, because they are just sending the sensor information or the basic information. So the transaction there is going to be probably less volume driven, but more value driven. So the strategy from an operator perspective, it's a dual. So the human subscription going to be volume, because we send 2 giga per day or per hour, while the machinery or the sensor data can be based on the value. So depending on what is the transaction that is involved, and then you charge upon the value of that. Of course, that is the trend. It's not a given, it's not fixed. The future will tell us, because it's going to be proved. I think that probably the today, probably The immediate type of transaction which is now available is the machine-to-machine, as you mentioned, so the connected car. And one of the example now, for example, it's in a business-to-business type of relationship where the operator sell the connected car. I think that also Siemens is pretty much involved in this type of business case, where you have, especially the BMW, the Volkswagen and those cars and many others having already SIM embedded on board. And that's provide a real-time data that can be used by assurance company. In UK, there is one assurance that is called Drive Like a Lady, and I apologize for that, but that is a reality. So you can Google on internet and see. Yeah, but like a lady, because you know it's supposed to be quiet, and and then depending on your driving style, you get a different premium package from the assurance company. So that is already something that is now. So the analytics comes real time online based on your driving pattern, and then you get immediately a different type of charging to your subscription. I have a final comment on this because when it's actually following the production side, we believe, and that's why I say the generation me and now. The now is relevant because it's around a moment of time which is happening, and so that means real time. Of course, we may have a post-processing, and we may have big data, we may have correlation of thousands of things, but the relevance that will make the future changing is the way that I'm transacting gigabyte with another peers, and at the same time I will get real-time data from 10 sensor, 100 sensor, with different tariffing plan, but at the same time having different level of interaction between me and other people, other human, and to the sensor, and the sensor with other sensor, and then getting out, and that has to be real time. That is going to be the key differentiator. So analytics in real time is going to be a challenge.
Interesting. Thank you. Liseanne, you mentioned Blueprint 2020. We keep hearing the clerk of the Privy Council talking about that more and more. What's the link between that? Is it a leadership thing? How does it relate to, taking it from a technicality to more to the people side of things? How does it relate to the vision of the future of government?
One way it relates to the vision of the future is to hook onto Nicola's last comment, which is the question of speed. When you talk about things happening in real time and real-time analytics, I don't think that I would be offside of most people in this room if I said that government isn't known for speed. That is actually quite challenging for government to be able to move as quickly as people expect, as people have a right to expect, as people are experiencing otherwise, whether it's in the case of service or in the case of dealing with a policy problem or a case of being able to manage the data that we have. So that link to that in Blueprint 2020. Blueprint 2020 came out of a sense that the previous clerk, Wayne Waters, who retired last year, and a group of deputy ministers had that as technology evolves and as society evolves with it, and as the consumer experience of Canadians evolves along with that, there was a real risk that the public service operating in an old industrial model, certainly not Industry 4.0, would fall behind, and in fact would become less relevant and less able to keep up. And so it was not just sort of a buzzword or even just an HR thing in and of itself. It was important from the perspective of the institution. If we want to continue to have an institution like the public service that is available to Canadians, that is valuable to them, and that delivers what it needs to for them all across the spectrum, then we needed to give that some thought. And so quite a bit of work was done, and he got behind, and his successor, Janice Charette, as well, this notion of a blueprint for where we need to be by 2020. That was a date that was picked, but it's going to be a continuous kind of evolution, which I would say is critical to the HR planning, to the resource planning of the Government of Canada moving forward, that makes sure that the public service has the capacity to stay current, to stay nimble, to stay agile, to change as industry changes, as society changes, as expectations change. And that also, that a lot of that has to play out, I would say, further to your question, at the level of the culture. There is a particular public service culture in Canada, there is in Europe as well, and that's born of the way in which public services have operated traditionally. And is that culture really one that can fully leverage the opportunities that technology offers and that can meet the expectations of Canadians who are operating in a modern environment? So a lot of the work that we're doing now, we've come up with the blueprint, we've come up with the major themes, we've engaged extensively across government as unprecedented level of individual engagement with all 370,000 public servants across Canada. And now we're at the point of implementation and really looking at what does this mean from a cultural point of view, and how do we start to take away some of the barriers to that nimble, agile, modern, connected way of doing things. And it's all across, it's across our ways of working, our process-bound approaches sometimes. It's looking at the philosophy of how we do things. It's looking at how our human resource management is organized. So really at all levels of the public service. And we see it as really quite urgent in terms of making sure that we have the workforce that we need moving into the future, and that workforce is motivated to really be modern and open and networked.
Interesting. So beyond the technology, and
absolutely,
I think there's the whole cultural dimension, leadership
and
dimension.
People don't often look. So
yeah.
It wasn't part of the creation of Shared Services Canada to be part of that agenda, but as those two agendas developed, it became so obvious that vision of a nimble, agile public service is absolutely impossible to achieve in an institution that's working on, 50 different infrastructure platforms. It just will never happen.
Interesting. Staying with the talent issue, Robert, maybe a question here. So we as an organization, we do a lot of labor market. We predicted by 2019 we'd require in Canada 182,000 ICT critical jobs to be filled. This is a skills gap, not a labor gap, because the people coming out from graduates from university colleges, the transition to the industry is not as seamless. Yet we have 12.8% youth unemployment in Canada. And I was looking at figures from the OECD just recently. In Germany, youth unemployment is about half of that, or even less. What is being done in Germany this 182,000 is to meet the demands of the Internet of Things economy. What is Germany doing differently that is attracting the youth into the digital economy that we need to look into?
First of all, Germany might have less young people. So
percentage.
Yeah, percentage-wise. Yeah. But I think I'm just kidding. So I think it's. I think first of all, it's good that so many young people go in IT and in this profession. On the other side, what we see is it's not just in the future to be trained on one area, for example, IT, and then maybe you are in automation or you are in mechanics. So it's more and more that young people and employees need to have a broader training and also education. That is what we are looking for. So, and when you ask me about topics in Germany, maybe, and also compare that with Canada, first of all, we in Siemens, so we face this issue similar. So we couldn't find the ideal young employee, yeah, so 25 years old with 20 years experience, so and so on. You know this. So and we said, okay, the government is not doing the right things. Yeah, so. And then we said, okay, but at the end, it doesn't work. So we as an industry, we as an organization, so we have to do something and then work together with the government and with the universities and colleges. And that is exactly what happens in countries who have a very low youth unemployment. There is more interaction and collaboration between the players in the educational sector. And I must say, because I'm now here in Canada for 8 years, so it took me really a while to understand the Canadian education system. So, but it's a good system. So it's world class. So there are a lot of countries import Canadian systems as a college system. They import that in one-on-one into their country. Let's say the Middle East countries. So I know a lot of colleges in Canada. So they implement it there. What we think is when you can combine or enhance a Canadian system with elements of other systems, So, and then make it better and also adapt it to the needs of the future of Canadian industry, whether it's IT or whether it's on service side, in finance or in manufacturing. So then you can create more and also well, would say, suited young people for the labor market. And that is why in Germany, I guess, the unemployment rate of young people is 6%, and maybe here it's 12+%. Yeah.
So is this what they call the VET, the vocational educational training, to mix the education with industry?
It's part of that. So you know, it's a different culture. So in Germany, for example, more than 60% go directly from high school in an apprenticeship program. So here in Canada, so apprenticeship programs are, but in Germany you have, I think, more than 400 up to 500 programs. That means when you go into a bank, you go there in an apprenticeship program. But I think here in Canada, you don't have a program in a bank as an apprentice. So, or you go to an insurance company. So there's a different culture. Then later on, a lot of those young people, they go back after years of practice, practicing their professions, they go back to university. So for example, I'm an example of that. So I started with 17 years as a power electrician in a German coal mine. So I'm a miner, so power electrician. But then later on, I went back to school and to university. So, and I had then, with 26, I had my university degree. I had 2 journeyman degrees. And also I have been in the army with 26. And then I went I joined Siemens, but I had all this practical experience. So when we now bring people from a college or from university in our organization, so then we have to really train them. So how to solve that? So we as Siemens, we work together now with colleges and universities and with the government and with business associations and say, okay, how can we do that? And we have now already started a program. So, and it was the program we started, or is a program we started in this May, so May 4th. So what we did, so we combined the curriculum of the universities and of the colleges we partner with, but we didn't touch those curriculums. So we let them as they are, but we analyzed what is missing. And then in our academy, we have now in Siemens, so we train exactly this, what is missing. And what we do on top of that, and I think that is the most important thing, we hire those students as Siemens employees. So they get then, and we pay them a salary and we pay them a tuition. So people would say, oh no, you pay a lot of money for that. So, but we get fully productive, after 2 years, fully productive graduates into our workforce. We save the hiring costs. We have very loyal young employees. So, and I think that's a blueprint of the future for Canadian companies. And we are rolling that out, and we'll roll that out with our partners to other companies and universities and colleges. So, and I must say, really, kudos to the universities, colleges, and to the government, provincial and federal government. So they all pitched in, and it was done in less than a year. It was done in less than a year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm cognizant of the time, actually. It's we haven't even opened it to the floor, let alone you're discussing it between you. But I just want to ask one last question, whoever can answer it very quickly. So, you know, part of the enablers, apart from talent, and, you know, we talk the networks and something, it's access to capital, access to financing, specifically for small, medium enterprises. Can somebody, one of you, sort of give a feel from your international experience? How is that, are we ready for that culturally? Are the financial system ready to understand what that Internet of Things, to be able to finance that environment? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. You know, Canada has a very high rate of startups. So I think there's only a few countries in the world who have as much as startups and really innovative small young companies. But then when they come to a certain level, so I call it the $100 million threshold, then all of a sudden the story stops. So then either those companies, or maybe not still startups, but those companies, they are sold or integrated in a bigger company. For example, like Nokia or Siemens or GE. So they pick those companies, they pick them up. What is the reason for that? I think maybe two reasons. You could say, okay, Canadians are risk averse. So I don't think so that is the case. I think it's more the overall system behind that. So it's the access to capital and how that is organized. That is one element. So that, and also how Canadian companies look on the, would say, challenge to globalize their business, to go to other markets and also have the long-term view. So coming to capital, so look into Europe or into the US, so they have different systems. US is very much venture capital, so it's very easy for startups to get this, and then they're more, the venture capital companies, they are more risk tolerant, so they say, okay, out of 10, 1 wins, so but then it goes. Here in Canada, this venture capital market is not as strong or even not existing like in, for example, in the US. Europe has a different, and especially in Germany has a different system. They have a lot of smaller local regional banks, and they finance the SME and also smaller companies, regional companies, smaller companies, and they take a very long-term view. So their profit expectations are different than, would say, somebody who is at the stock exchange. And they also finance the globalization of those companies. So they support them when they go global with a good business case, so they stay with them. So it's a very local topic. So the access to capital is for me, a very good point of view. And then when you have startups, they very often go in innovation. And then the topic is, so innovation is also combined with risk. And sometimes, of course, the investors, so when they see a company and say, okay, now they invest, I give maybe part of my profit into the innovation and R&D, and then the profit is reduced, and I'm sure that in 5 years or in 2 years, so that it's really working, or in 10 years, so they're a little bit hesitant to do that. And I think we need also to talk about how to de-risk innovation by using the technologies we have right now. That means using more what I described before, the technologies of design, the design technologies, the simulation, emulation technologies to prove the concept, and also then to show the future and all the investors. So this innovation will work, and that is also a product which can be interesting for the global market. So that is also a topic. So, and all in all, so I personally think this topic can be solved, but it's a long way to do, and it's also a thing not just on the mindset, it's really also how we look on the financing of startups and also SMEs.
Excellent, thank you. Well, so I want to...
Eventually, I want to challenge a little bit, or at least expanding the vision here, because especially, I was not completely on top of...
Open it to the floor after.
Okay,
because we've got 5 minutes left.
For the Canadian audience, I mean, as long as there are a lot of SME, I truly believe that Internet of Things will unlock, again, opportunity even for people that don't have access to global market, to global production, and to financing. Because at the end of the day, you can go, maybe the next Tesla is going to be invented in Canada by a younger, just at home, and making the production in Shenzhou, remotely from an internet PC or from a Mac. So at the end of the day, you can really unlock opportunity to produce something somewhere without having access to finance and logistics. That's my thought.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Let me open it to the floor. Any questions? Anything? Any thoughts? No. I'll ask. Maybe if no questions, ask. Do you have any questions of each other?
Eventually I have a question.
Everybody looks to government.
No, just a quick one about, I mean, it's clearly, for example, in Europe, it's evident, but many other global operator players are consolidating. And so how do you see in Canada the consolidation happening, or if any consolidation happened between, multiple players? Because I think that fixed, we see the Exponet presentation before, but then fixed, then mobile and TV and cable. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be one network. So, I mean, maybe layer networks, but whatever network. But so, how do you see the consolidation happening in Canada?
Well, I think as a general statement, and it sort of depends on which sector you're thinking of and which aspect within the sector, while certainly from my perspective, I would have to say that, you know, there are benefits in consolidation. Just in our little area, that's what we're doing. But there's also has to be balanced off by what diversity brings for you. And I don't think you want diversity to the extent that it proliferates, and so there can't be any gathering up of the value that all of that represents. But I think for the Government of Canada, maintaining a certain capacity for diversity. I mean, I think people have seen that through the policies associated with spectrum and other areas. But I mean, I completely join the comments that were made earlier about the fact that only having diversity at the startup level and then never being able to grow anything bigger is an issue. In terms of convergence of different sectors, I wouldn't say that there's a policy predisposition in favor or not. It sort of relates to the given instance. But generally speaking, I would say there is some reticence to consolidation to the point where the diversity no longer becomes available in terms of options.
Excellent. Well, I think we run out of time. Certainly thank each and every one of you for your participation in this. I mean, it's fascinating. I think we can take this to a whole new level of discussions. But it sounds like the whole shaping of the business models in the next number of years, the more I think about it, is going to be as disruptive to the industries as the technology is changing them. So I think I can't wait to see how things will develop in the next number of years, and we'll be certainly looking at some of the things that you're developing and others are developing in this arena. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and let me echo what Namir said. You know, it's great to have the perspectives from the government side that Liseanne brings, and the global types of perspectives that Nicola and Robert can bring, given what they do for a living. So we appreciate you sharing those perspectives, and again to Namir for helping pull those discussions together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.